The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Sarah methodically disassembled her sidearm at the maintenance bench. Her fingers moved with practiced precision, each component finding its place in neat rows on the worn metal surface. The cleaning rod glided through the barrel in smooth strokes, removing every trace of residue from the morning's training exercise. Behind her, voices carried from the common area where 3 soldiers lounged near the coffee machine. Martinez leaned against the counter, his voice cutting through the afternoon stillness. "She's been at that same spot for 2 hours," he said with a shake of his head, acting like that pistol is some kind of sacred artifact. Thompson chuckled, stirring sugar into his cup. Maintenance duty must be getting to her. Some people just can't handle real military work, so they find busy work to fill the time. Sarah's jaw tightened slightly, but her hands never paused in their methodical rhythm. The trigger assembly came apart with practiced ease, each spring and pin accounted for. She had heard variations of these comments for weeks now, ever since her reassignment to this base. "Where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it there right now, as we share this moment together?" The metal components gleamed under the harsh lighting as she began the reassembly process. Outside the maintenance bay, boots echoed against concrete as someone approached with the deliberate stride of authority. The footsteps grew louder as they approached the maintenance bay. Sarah continued her work, sliding the barrel back into place with a soft click that echoed in the quiet space. Her movements remained steady despite the approaching presence, muscle memory guiding each motion. Martinez pushed off from the counter, his voice dropping to a stage whisper that carried clearly across the room. "Here comes the inspection tour," he muttered. "Wonder if she'll actually get called out for taking so long on one weapon." The figure in the doorway paused, surveying the scene. Sarah felt the weight of observation, but kept her focus on the reassembly process. The slide mechanism engaged with satisfying precision as she tested the action. 3 smooth cycles confirmed everything functioned perfectly. Thompson set down his coffee cup with deliberate force. Maybe if some people spent less time playing with equipment and more time in actual training, they would understand what real service looks like. Sarah's shoulders tensed almost imperceptibly. She had endured months of similar comments, each one chipping away at her patience. The irony of their assumptions hung heavy in the air around her, a secret that felt both protective and isolating. Have you ever witnessed someone being completely underestimated based on appearances alone, only to discover they possessed extraordinary capabilities that no one could have imagined? The visitors' boots clicked against the concrete floor as they stepped fully into the maintenance bay. Sarah finally looked up, her eyes meeting those of someone whose presence would change everything about how this story unfolded. General Morrison stepped into the maintenance bay, his weathered face taking in every detail of the scene before him. His silver hair caught the fluorescent light as he surveyed the spotless workspace where Sarah continued her methodical cleaning routine. The 3 soldiers near the coffee station straightened instinctively, their casual conversation dying mid-sentence. Sarah holstered her freshly cleaned sidearm and began organizing her cleaning supplies. Each brush and rod found its designated place in the kit with the same precision she had applied to the weapon maintenance. Her movements spoke of someone who understood that attention to detail could mean the difference between life and death. Martinez cleared his throat nervously. "Good afternoon, General Morrison, sir." He gestured vaguely towards Sarah's workstation. "We were just discussing training schedules and equipment maintenance protocols." The general's eyes remained fixed on Sarah as she worked. Something about her posture, the efficiency of her movements, struck him as familiar. Years of command had taught him to recognize certain qualities that transcended rank and assignment. This soldier possessed an economy of motion that spoke of extensive field experience. Thompson shifted uncomfortably under the general's scrutiny. The maintenance base suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker with unspoken tension. Sarah finished packing her cleaning kit, the soft clicks and snaps of closing latches the only sound breaking the heavy silence that had settled over the room like morning fog over still water. Sarah stood and turned to face the general, her posture automatically shifting to attention despite the informal setting. The cleaning kit remained balanced perfectly in her left hand while her right arm hung naturally at her side. Her eyes met General Morrison's with the steady gaze of someone accustomed to authority, neither defiant nor submissive. The general took a step closer, his experienced eye cataloging details that the other soldiers had overlooked entirely. The way she held herself spoke of countless hours under fire, of decisions made in split seconds when failure meant catastrophe. Her uniform was regulation perfect, but beneath that surface conformity lay something deeper. Martinez exchanged glances with Thompson, both men sensing a shift in the atmosphere they couldn't quite identify. The casual dismissiveness that had marked their earlier conversation evaporated under the weight of the general's focused attention. Something significant was unfolding, though neither understood what they were witnessing. Sarah's sleeve bore the standard insignia expected of her current assignment, but as she moved to secure her cleaning kit, the fabric shifted slightly. A glimpse of something else became visible beneath the regulation patches, something that made General Morrison's eyes narrow with sudden recognition. The fluorescent lights continued their monotonous hum overhead, but the quality of silence in the room had changed completely. What had begun as another routine afternoon was transforming into something that would reshape everyone's understanding of exactly who stood before them in that sterile maintenance bay. General Morrison's breath caught as the fabric of Sarah's sleeve shifted again, revealing a distinctive patch that shouldn't exist on a maintenance assignment uniform. The eagle and trident symbol was unmistakable to anyone who understood its significance. His decades of military service had taught him to recognize the markers of elite units, and what he glimpsed beneath her regulation exterior changed everything. Sarah noticed the general's intense focus and instinctively adjusted her sleeve, but it was too late. The secret she had carefully maintained through months of routine assignments had been exposed in a single moment. Her jaw set with quiet resignation as she recognized the shift in his expression from curious observation to dawning comprehension. Martinez stepped forward uncertainly. "General Morrison, sir, is everything satisfactory with the maintenance procedures?" His voice carried the nervous energy of someone sensing undercurrents beyond his understanding. The general raised his hand for silence without breaking eye contact with Sarah. 28 years of command had prepared him for many situations, but discovering a decorated special operations veteran disguised in routine maintenance duty was not among them. What would you do if you discovered someone you had completely misjudged possessed capabilities that far exceeded anything you could have imagined? Thompson's coffee cup remained forgotten in his hands as the tension in the room reached a breaking point. The casual afternoon that had begun with mockery and assumptions was about to become something none of them would ever forget. The general's voice cut through the silence with the authority of someone accustomed to commanding respect. "Soldier," he said, his tone carrying decades of experience reading between the lines of military service records. "That patch tells a story that doesn't match your current assignment." Sarah's shoulders straightened as years of training took over. She had spent months blending into the background of routine military life, but that anonymity was dissolving under the weight of recognition. The cleaning kit felt suddenly heavy in her hands, a symbol of the mundane role that had served as her refuge from a more complicated past. Martinez looked between the general and Sarah with growing confusion. The dynamics in the room had shifted beyond his comprehension, leaving him grasping for context that remained just out of reach. Thompson set his coffee down with trembling hands, sensing that whatever was unfolding would reshape everything he thought he understood about their quiet colleague. General Morrison took another step closer, his experienced eye taking in details that painted a picture far different from the maintenance assignment paperwork. The way she held herself under scrutiny spoke of someone accustomed to high-stakes situations where composure could mean survival. Have you ever been in a situation where the truth about someone's background completely changed how everyone around them had to reconsider everything they thought they knew? The air in the maintenance bay grew thick with anticipation as the moment of full revelation approached like an unstoppable tide. Sarah met the general's gaze directly, the pretense of her mundane assignment crumbling like sand beneath the weight of his recognition. Her voice carried the steady cadence of someone who had reported to commanding officers in far more dangerous circumstances than a maintenance bay on a quiet afternoon. "Yes, sir," she said simply. "The patch represents service that doesn't appear on my current duty roster." General Morrison nodded slowly, pieces of a puzzle falling into place with crystalline clarity. He had seen enough classified operations reports to recognize the implications of what he was witnessing. This soldier had been placed in routine assignment for reasons that extended far beyond normal military personnel management. Martinez stepped backward unconsciously, finally beginning to grasp that his casual dismissiveness had been directed at someone whose actual service record would likely humble every soldier in the building. The jokes about busy work and inability to handle real military duties echoed in his memory with uncomfortable new context. Thompson's face had gone pale as the magnitude of his misjudgment became apparent. The woman he had mocked for spending too much time on weapon maintenance possessed credentials that probably included scenarios where such attention to detail had saved lives under conditions he couldn't begin to imagine. This moment reminds us that some of the most extraordinary people walk among us disguised as ordinary, carrying stories that could inspire and humble us all at the same time. The truth was finally emerging from months of carefully maintained silence. General Morrison's expression shifted from curiosity to something approaching reverence as the full implications of Sarah's presence became clear. He had read classified briefings that mentioned operations requiring the kind of expertise her hidden patch represented. The maintenance base suddenly felt like hallowed ground where a legend had been hiding in plain sight. Sarah remained at attention, but her posture now carried the unmistakable bearing of someone who had earned her place among the military's most elite operators. The cleaning kit in her hands seemed almost absurd, given what the general now understood about her actual capabilities and service record. Martinez felt his stomach drop as memories of every dismissive comment he had made over the past months came flooding back with crushing clarity. The woman he had mocked for being too focused on equipment maintenance had likely performed miracles with those same weapons in situations that would have broken lesser soldiers completely. Thompson's hands shook as he reached for his coffee cup, missing it entirely on the first attempt. The casual cruelty of his assumptions about her inability to handle real military work now seemed not just wrong, but almost sacrilegious. He had been in the presence of someone whose definition of real military work existed on a level he couldn't comprehend. The fluorescent lights continued their relentless hum, but the maintenance bay had transformed into a stage where truth was about to strip away every comfortable assumption and reveal the extraordinary reality that had been hidden beneath the surface of routine duty assignments. The general's voice dropped to a tone reserved for moments of profound significance. "Soldier," he said, his words carrying the weight of understanding that transcended rank and protocol. "That patch represents service that most people will never know existed, operations that kept this country safe, while remaining invisible to those who benefited from them." Sarah's grip on the cleaning kit tightened slightly, the only visible sign that months of enforced anonymity were finally coming to an end. She had grown accustomed to the protective shield of ordinary duty assignments, but that refuge was dissolving under the penetrating gaze of someone who understood exactly what her concealed credentials represented. Martinez felt the floor beneath his feet become unsteady as the magnitude of his ignorance crashed over him like a tsunami of realization. Every casual insult, every dismissive gesture, every moment of assumed superiority replayed in his mind with horrifying clarity. He had been throwing stones at a mountain while believing himself to be the giant. Thompson's coffee cup slipped from nerveless fingers, shattering against the concrete floor with a sound that seemed to punctuate the death of their comfortable misconceptions. The broken ceramics scattered like fragments of their shattered assumptions about the quiet woman who had endured their mockery with grace they were only now beginning to understand. The moment of complete revelation hung in the air like morning mist, ready to burn away under the harsh light of truth that could no longer be contained. General Morrison stepped forward and gently moved Sarah's sleeve, fully revealing the patch that had been hidden beneath regulation fabric. The distinctive insignia gleamed under the fluorescent lights, each thread representing missions that existed only in classified files and the memories of those who had lived them. "Sarah," he said, his voice carrying decades of command authority mixed with genuine respect. "Staff Sergeant Sarah Chun, if I'm reading this correctly. Operation Nightfall, Afghanistan, 2019. The hostage extraction that officially never happened." The words hit the maintenance bay like thunder in a clear sky. Martinez and Thompson stood frozen as the impossible became undeniably real. The woman they had dismissed as overly cautious with routine maintenance had performed miracles under fire that most soldiers couldn't survive, let alone accomplish with the precision her classified record indicated. Sarah's posture shifted imperceptibly, acknowledging the end of her anonymity with the grace of someone who had always known this moment would eventually arrive. "Yes, sir," she replied quietly. Among other assignments that remained classified, the general nodded with the profound respect reserved for warriors whose sacrifices had shaped history from the shadows. Have you ever witnessed the moment when someone's true story transforms everything you thought you understood about courage and service and what it means to be a hero? The broken coffee cup fragments crunched under Thompson's shifting feet as the magnitude of their presence in the room, with genuine military royalty, became overwhelming and undeniable. The maintenance bay transformed into sacred ground as General Morrison continued speaking, his voice carrying the weight of classified knowledge finally brought into the light. 12 hostages extracted from a compound that intelligence said was impenetrable. 0 casualties among the rescued civilians. Mission completion under conditions that would have broken entire units. Sarah remained at attention, but something in her bearing had shifted with the revelation. Months of hiding behind routine assignments fell away like discarded armor, revealing the warrior who had always existed beneath the carefully maintained facade of ordinary service. Martinez sank against the wall, his legs no longer capable of supporting him under the crushing weight of understanding. Every joke about her excessive attention to detail now revealed itself as the habits of someone for whom a single oversight could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. Thompson knelt among the broken ceramic fragments, his hands trembling as he tried to collect pieces that could never be made whole again, much like his shattered assumptions about the woman who stood before them with quiet dignity. The casual cruelty of his dismissive comments echoed in his memory with devastating clarity. General Morrison turned to address the stunned soldiers with the stern authority of command. "You have been in the presence of someone whose service record represents the finest traditions of military excellence, and that knowledge should humble every one of us completely. Share this moment with someone who needs to understand what true service and sacrifice really mean." The fluorescent lights seemed to shine differently now, illuminating not just a maintenance bay, but a place where truth had triumphed over assumption and recognition had finally found its mark. Sarah stood with quiet dignity as General Morrison rendered a respectful salute that acknowledged service far beyond what her current assignment suggested. Martinez struggled to his feet, his voice barely above a whisper as he addressed Sarah directly. "Staff Sergeant, I owe you an apology that no words can adequately express. My ignorance was inexcusable, and my behavior was unworthy of the uniform we both wear." Thompson remained on his knees among the ceramic fragments, tears streaming down his face as the magnitude of his misjudgment overwhelmed him completely. The woman he had mocked possessed a courage that had saved lives in ways he could never comprehend or match. Sarah's response carried the grace that had sustained her through months of undeserved criticism. "We all serve according to our assignments," she said simply. Today, mine changes back to where it belongs. General Morrison smiled with the satisfaction of a puzzle finally solved. Staff Sergeant Shun, report to Special Operations Command tomorrow morning. Your temporary exile from active duty is officially terminated. The maintenance bay had witnessed a transformation that would ripple through the entire base. This reminds us that heroes walk among us every day, often hidden behind the most ordinary appearances, carrying extraordinary stories of service and sacrifice. Word of this revelation would spread like wildfire, forever changing how people looked at those around them.